Hi everyone. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Simon Finneran. I run Sandler in Canary Wharf. Now can I start by apologising that I'm not there with you all today in person. Unfortunately, both David, my colleague, and myself have both got training commitments that have meant that we're not in London. But anyway, I am here to talk to you all today about creating a winning lead generation plan. Now, I'm guessing that sales and particularly new business is the lifeblood of many of your businesses. And I'm sure that some of you will agree that it can be quite a tricky thing to figure out what's a grown up, strategic, systematic approach that you can do to develop new business rather than what a lot of people end up doing, which is a bit of a mad panic, completely kind of scattergun approach, hoping that, by doing that, they get some new business. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes that works. The problem is that because it's so scattergun, very often you or your salesperson don't really know what part of it, what part of the activity actually worked. And so the only option you have is to carry on doing more and more of the same. And that's not really a very good use of everyone's time. It's quite an inefficient way, really, for developing new business. So in Sandler, we have what we call the success triangle. And this is made up of three parts: behavior, attitude, and technique. Now, building a winning business development plan, that kind of firmly sits under the behavior category. So at Sandler, we believe that there are a few things that we need to focus on that can really help to set those right behaviors. And the first one is we don't want to manage our results. We want to manage our behaviors. The second one is that we want to control the controllables, and we don't want to focus on the things that we don't have control over, because that's a problem. When we're trying to measure sales results, now don't get me wrong, it is important that you get the outcome, but it isn't the only thing to measure, because measuring sales results, that there's often a bit of a lag. When that result comes in, when you win that deal, it's not down to something you've done today. It might have been something you'd done, work you'd done a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe 3 years ago if you have a long sales cycle within your business. So instead, we want to manage our behaviors and not manage our results. So let's dig in a little bit more about what this means. Now, first of all, we've got to put together a lead generation cookbook. Now, a cookbook in its basic sense is really a recipe for success. So what are the elements that we want to put into our cookbook so that it can be really strategic and really systematic in supporting our approach to prospecting and lead generation? And to do that, we've got to start by looking a little bit into our numbers. So we've got to start with the end in mind. What's the goal we're looking to achieve? Are we trying to bring on 10 new clients this year? Or are you hoping to generate £1 million worth of new revenue? Whatever the number is for you, once you have that goal, once you have that number, we can then start working back and then start thinking about how that links into our sales process. So for example, let's say that in the next 12 months you want to land 10 new clients. How many pitches do you need to do in order to land those 10 deals? In order to land those pitches, how many opportunities do you need to uncover? To get those opportunities, how many meetings do you need to have scheduled? To land those meetings, how many conversations do you need to have? So we've got to work out our sales process, and very often we may never have looked at that before. We've never maybe collected those numbers before. So we might just be plucking figures out of the air and guessing. And do you know what? If you are doing that, that's fine, because we've got to start from somewhere. And so the key part really is that we've got to be very clear with what we're looking to achieve. And this kind of pulls me into the second part of a successful lead generation plan. And that's to start thinking about, well, what are the prospecting activities that are appropriate for your industry and for your sales process? And I think appropriate really is the right word, rather than the ones that we kind of like to do. Because take something, for example, like outbound calls. You might not like doing that. In fact, you may absolutely dread doing that. But if some people in your industry get business that way, you've got to do it. We've got a rule at Sandler. You don't have to like it, you just need to do it. And if it works, we have to be able to put our fears and put our negative beliefs about that prospecting activity to one side so that we can just get on and we can do it. Now, there are loads of prospecting activities available. Not all of them are suitable for everybody, but there's lots. It could be outbound dials, it could be following up website leads, it could be LinkedIn or other social platforms, it could be networking, asking for referrals, exhibitions, maybe good old-fashioned walk-ins. There's lots available. The thing to bear in mind, though, is that every company, I'm afraid it doesn't matter what industry you're in, has between 3 and 5 lead sources. And in my experience, most people will have 1 or 2 that sit most comfortably with them. And they're the first ones that kind of spring to mind. And don't get me wrong, we need to keep on doing those things, but we've also got to embrace those activities that maybe are a little out of our comfort zones. Maybe those activities that make us feel a little uncomfortable. And the reason why it's really important that we do that is we've got to be able to cast our net wide enough in order to get the opportunities that can help us land the business that helps us achieve our goals. Now, the last thing to really bear in mind while we're putting together our plan is that once we've got the plan, you've got the number of prospecting activities you need to do, we've got to then break it down into a monthly and then weekly number. And we've got to then track it. And we need to track it weekly because I often use the analogy of an airline pilot. Let's say a pilot was flying from London to New York. Now, my hope is that they don't take off, set the course, and then go, well, that's me done for the next 7 hours. I'll come back and see where we are, when I've had a bit of a sleep. Because even if they were just 1 degree off in London, if they waited that 7 hours, they're not going to be in New York. So instead, I'm hoping that the pilot sets its course and then kind of comes back every, 5 or 10 minutes to check and make those tiny little changes to align them so that they're on course to reach their destination. And that's why we track weekly, so that we can look at what's working and what's not working. Did we achieve our activity goals last week, or do we need to do a little bit more this week to get back on track? Because if we're only tracking monthly or quarterly performance, the timeframes are too big. It's gone. There's very little you can do then to change course. So you want to build your cookbook, you want to work back on your numbers, you want to put those prospecting activities in place, and then you want to track them weekly. And with those 3 things working together, you've got the foundations then of a winning lead generation plan. So on that note, I want to thank you for your time. If anyone wants to grab a copy of our How to Overcome Prospecting Mistakes and Increase Your Sales Pipeline guide, then you can scan the QR code. And on that note, I will look forward to seeing you all at one of the future events. All the best and take care.